Welcome to another Promodel solution. Today we're going to talk about using a connection string in our arrays to import data. When we go to import an array, we have two options here. We have the Excel option or the database option. The Excel option is pretty straightforward, easy to do. Kind of limits you to the ranges of data that you want to use, but it's really simple, easy to set up. The downside to using the Excel option is that it's slower at runtime when it's pulling the data in. The other option we have here is database. And the database option allows us to connect to an external data source like an Excel file, SQL database, whatever, some external data source. As long as you have the right connections, the right drivers, and a connection string, you can import the data into Promodel with that. Today I'm going to show you how to use connection string for Excel using the XLS file type to import data from an external file. We're going to use a connection string. There's a nifty website called connectionstrings.com, pretty original, that gives a listing for all the connection strings for Microsoft Office versions 2003, 7, and 10, along with other, for SQL databases, Oracle, and so forth. If you have any questions about connection strings, that's a good resource to look at. So we're going to use a connection string to connect to an Excel file. I'm going to go over here really quick what the connection string is I'm looking at. The first section of the connection string defines who the provider is. In this case, it's going to be the Microsoft ACOLE DB. This is the way that the database communicates. It's the language that it speaks, if you will. This is what it's using to interpret the data that we're going to pull out of the database. The next section of the connection or string is the path to the file. In this case, it's an Excel file. So the path, the data source is the path, and you can use, if it's on the local machine, you can put the path there. You can use a UNC, which is a / computer name / share, and then the path to the Excel file. Then the next section is the extended properties. In this case, the extended properties show Excel 12.0 XML. This is the extended properties for just a generic XLSX file. If we were going to use a macro file, if the file that we were attaching to was an XLSM or a macro Excel file, we'd change this XML to XLSM so that it knows what type of file it's connecting to. The next and last section here, where it says HDR, this stands for header. And what this is asking is, in the first row of the data, is that going to be a header with your names of like the field? So like you might have the name of the entity type, and then you might have quantity and so on. If we put yes here, then it ignores that first row and then skips to the second row to read the data. If we put no here, then it starts at the first row and reads the data and pulls it in. So that's what our connection string does. This tells the system how to connect and where to connect to the data source. The data access command is a SQL query that allows you to have some flexibility on what you can pull out of the data source. A simple query would be select the star, meaning all, from, and then we put sheet 1, and then where our data is. And this one we're going to say from A1 to A25, or whatever the range of whatever the range of the data is. And that's we don't want to use the curly brace, that's my mistake. Okay, so this is simply saying select everything from sheet 1 in the columns A1 to A25. There's additional information about the way to format the query in the Excel help file, but it's basically in a SQL format. So if you know a little bit of SQL, you can create a query that's going to pull up data from multiple sheets and multiple sections on the same sheet if you need to. So that is how you use a connection string to pull data in from an external file into Promodel. Thanks. See you next time.